I faced lies, betrayals, and manipulations, and discovered something that changed everything forever. I woke up that day with the weight of years of family tension crushing me. My name is Elisa, I'm 22 years old, and I've always felt responsible for keeping everything in order, even when the world around me seemed to be falling apart. My father, Hugo, is a good man, but the loss of my mother made him overprotective, and he placed a responsibility on me that, at times, I didn't even know I could. Carrie. I had already learned to deal with the dramas of my sister Bruna, who always overreacted to every situation, and with Camilla, who tried to maintain her composure but also felt pressured. But that day, everything seemed to explode at once. Regina, my absent and manipulative mother, appeared out of nowhere, with accusations and blackmail that only increased my anxiety. I felt fear, anger, and a shame that burned inside, as if I were to blame for everything that was happening. The hardest part was feeling like I had to protect my father and my sisters, and still deal with my feelings, without losing my sanity. I looked in the mirror and saw someone tired but determined. That day, I realized that I could no longer remain silent, that I needed to find a strength that I didn't even know existed within me. The most critical moment began when my cousin Daniela decided to add fuel to the fire by unfairly accusing Sam, my loyal friend, of things he would never do. Sam, who had always been by my side, suddenly seemed small in the face of the cruelty and lies of people who should have cared about him. My heart raced, anger surged, and I felt powerless. I cried in secret, unable to show weakness in front of Hugo, who was already carrying so much weight. The feeling of injustice was overwhelming. I wanted to scream for all to hear that Sam didn't deserve this, but I also needed to keep a cool head, thinking of the whole family. What kept me going was realizing that, despite the chaos, there was something no one could touch. My love for my family and the certainty that I couldn't allow toxicity to destroy the little peace we still had. Anger mixed with fear turned to clarity. For the first time, I felt that if I wanted to protect those I loved, I needed to set firm boundaries, even if it meant confronting my mother and cousin. I remember that day, while I was taking care of the small things around the house and trying to calm my sisters, I felt a physical and emotional exhaustion that seemed overwhelming. Hugo was tense. Rita, our supporter, was trying to keep us together, but I could feel her struggle, as if she were also overwhelmed. It was then that Mateus, my fiancé, arrived, calmly trying to reassure me. He held my hand, and without many words, made me realize I wasn't alone. It was at that moment that I began to understand that my strength didn't have to be solitary. I could fight without carrying everything on my shoulders. I could allow others to help. This thought gave me a strange relief, a hope I hadn't felt in years. I began to realize that protecting my family didn't just mean silently enduring everything. It meant taking action, setting boundaries, and most importantly, taking care of myself too. Feeling this, even though I was afraid, was the turning point. For the first time, it wasn't just about surviving. It was about starting to rebuild our lives and making room for the love and peace we deserved. At the height of the conflict, when Regina began trying to manipulate Bruna and Camilla against me, I felt a mixture of desperation and determination. I could feel her every word trying to hurt me, but I also felt something growing inside me. The certainty that I would no longer be held hostage by the actions of those who only brought me pain. I remained silent for a few minutes, breathing deeply, looking at Sam, Matthias, and Rita, realizing that they were all genuinely there for me. The feeling of not being alone was transformative. For the first time, I realized that, despite all the toxicity around me, there was true affection that could not be destroyed. I began to allow myself to feel anger and fear, but also to use these emotions as fuel. It wasn't easy. Every word Regina said cut deep, but my awareness that I needed to protect what truly mattered kept me strong. I felt that in that moment, my life would change. I would no longer be held hostage by manipulation, nor would I allow myself to be consumed by old resentments. The clarity that came was harsh but liberating. I needed to take action, set boundaries, and not blame myself for putting family first. As the day began to darken, I felt a huge weight lift from my shoulders. Not because the problems had disappeared, but because I finally had the courage to face them. I felt more alive than ever, a mixture of extreme exhaustion and genuine hope. Sam was by my side, Matthias holding my hand, Rita smiling comfortingly, and Hugo, finally, breathing a little easier. The feeling of strength that grew within me was incredible. It wasn't about controlling everything, but about protecting what was important and allowing love and unity to overcome manipulation and pain. Looking at Sophia, the little newcomer who brought so much light, I realized it was worth the fight. There, that day, I understood that overcoming begins when you decide to no longer be a hostage, when you decide to face the chaos with clarity and courage, and when you allow yourself to feel supported without guilt. The fear was still there, the pain too, but now there was something greater, the certainty that we could rebuild our family and our lives, step by step. When I woke up the next day, I realized something had shifted within me. The feeling of fear was still there, but now it was accompanied by a clarity I'd never felt before. I remembered everything that had happened the day before and felt a mix of exhaustion and strength, as if each tear had been a step toward emotional freedom. Hugo was still apprehensive, and I could see in his eyes the concern of someone who feels they've lost control of their family, but also the beginning of confidence. I knew my firm stance the day before had changed something. Bruna still complained about everything, dramatizing situations as usual, but I began to realize I didn't need to get involved in every crisis to maintain peace. Camilla looked at me with a mixture of relief and silent admiration, and that made me feel like I was on the right path. The most important thing was that Sam and Matthias were standing firm by my side, reminding me that I didn't have to face the storm alone. That afternoon, while I was caring for Sophia, I felt a moment of absolute silence that seemed to give me permission to breathe. The little one nestled in my arms, completely trusting me, and I felt a new responsibility, unlike anything I had ever felt before. It wasn't just about protecting my family from outside manipulation, but about creating a safe space for love and unity. It was in that moment that I understood that my strength wasn't just about resistance. It was about building something worthwhile. Every gesture I made, every firm word I'd spoken the day before now made sense. I felt proud of myself, something I hadn't felt in a long time. The fear was still there, but it was no longer paralyzing. There was room for hope, for resilience. This clarity gave me the strength to face what was yet to come, knowing that, even in the face of Regina and Daniela, I could maintain my balance. Late in the afternoon, Hugo and Rita were talking in the living room, and I could hear parts of their conversation. Hugo seemed more relaxed, talking about trying to rebuild our life together, and Rita offered support with her characteristic calm. It was incredible to realize that even with all the pain, there were still people who wanted to protect and strengthen us. I felt immense gratitude and, for the first time in a long time, realized I didn't need to carry the entire family on my shoulders. This didn't mean I was weak, but rather that I finally understood that true strength doesn't come from suffering alone, but from sharing the burden with those who truly care. It was a moment of pure clarity. I felt myself breaking free from a seemingly endless cycle of fear and manipulation, and it brought a sense of relief that almost brought me to tears with emotion. As I prepared dinner, thinking about what might yet happen, I felt a quiet anger transform into determination. Regina might still try to interfere, and Daniela might continue spreading lies, but I knew I was ready to face these situations differently. No longer with fear or guilt, but with clear boundaries and firm protection for my family. I realized that despite all the tension, Sam and Matthias's presence, combined with Rita's calm and Hugo's love, created a safety net that allowed me to act without despair. I felt a strength I never imagined I had, a courage that only comes when you're tired of being manipulated and decide it's time to take control of your own life. When I finally sat down with Camilla and Bruna to talk, I felt a mix of nervousness and relief. I knew changing the family dynamics wouldn't be easy, but I had to try. I spoke directly, unapologetically setting boundaries, explaining that love for family also included protecting everyone from chaos. Camilla listened attentively, and even Bruna, who usually dramatizes, began to understand that it was no longer time to repeat the same patterns. This moment gave me a sense of silent victory, something I had never experienced before. I realized that my life could be better, despite the conflicts, and that I was beginning to build a healthier reality for all of us. For the first time, I felt the weight on my shoulders begin to lift, and hope became something tangible. That day, I felt something inside me shift forever. That morning, as I organized the house and cared for Sophia, I realized I could no longer allow myself to be paralyzed by fear. Regina still tried to manipulate everything from a distance, and Daniela continued her accusations, But for the first time, I felt I had the emotional tools to deal with it. Every small action, every firm decision I'd made the day before, began to solidify as a turning point. I felt tired, of course, but also a strength that surprised me. I realized that protecting my family didn't mean controlling every detail, but rather acting clearly, maintaining boundaries and caring for what truly matters. As I looked at Sophia sleeping, I felt a deep determination that the love, the bond we were building, needed to be preserved at any cost. That afternoon, Hugo came to talk to me. He was visibly worried, but he also seemed more confident. I knew he trusted me, and this brought a new responsibility, but also a relief. For the first time, I felt I didn't have to carry everything alone, that being with people who truly care could strengthen us. Sam and Matthias were with me, and it completely changed my perspective. The fear was still there, but it was no longer overwhelming. I began to realize that, even in the face of my mother and cousin's manipulations, there was a solid foundation of love and loyalty that no one could break. This clarity gave me the courage to face not only external conflicts, but also my internal fears, which often prevented me from taking action. Later, when Bruna started complaining about something small, I felt a newfound patience blossom within me. Before, I would have reacted with anger or anxiety, but now I was able to take a deep breath and explain firmly and calmly. She wasn't pleased, of course, but something had changed. I was no longer at the mercy of other people's drama. Camilla, on the other hand, seemed lighter, as if she finally realized she didn't need to feel guilty for everything that was happening. It was a moment of clarity for me. We can't always change others, but we can change how we react and set boundaries. I felt proud of myself, a feeling I hadn't felt in a long time. For the first time, I began to believe it was possible to protect my family and still take care of myself, without feeling guilty or overwhelmed. By late afternoon, I felt a mix of exhaustion and relief. Every conflict we'd faced that day seemed smaller, because I now had clarity in how I dealt with it. Hugo and Rita were talking in the living room about reorganizing the family routine, and I realized there was finally room for love to overcome the chaos. Sam came to me, held my hand, and told me he was proud of my attitude. I felt tears well up, not of pain, but of immense relief. It was the first time I realized that, even with all the manipulation and accusations, there was a lighter reality we could build. Sophia, small and innocent, was there as a symbol of a new beginning, and I felt our family bond was genuinely strengthening. When night fell, I sat in Sophia's room and watched her sleep. I felt a deep gratitude and a renewed hope I hadn't known existed. The sense of relief was real, but it was also accompanied by an awareness. There were still challenges, but now I had the strength to face them. I felt empowered to say no when necessary, to protect those I loved without feeling guilty, to allow love and unity to overcome manipulation and drama. It was a moment of clarity and transformation. For the first time, I felt I no longer needed to live in constant fear, that I could slowly rebuild our family and my personal life in a healthy and safe way. The next day, I felt a different determination when I woke up. The tension hadn't disappeared, but my approach to dealing with it had completely changed. Regina continued to try to create conflict, and Daniela relentlessly spread accusations that hurt Sam, but something inside me remained firm. I realized my strength didn't come from silently enduring everything, but from acting clearly and setting boundaries. Every breath I took was accompanied by a knowingness. I didn't need to be held hostage by those who only wanted to see us suffer. Hugo was still worried, but the confidence in my steps was already beginning to rub off on him. Seeing Sam, Matthias, and Rita supporting me brought an unprecedented sense of relief and courage. For the first time, I felt I wasn't alone in a cycle that had previously seemed endless. That afternoon, while organizing Sophia's room, I felt a moment of silence that seemed to give me space to think. I held the little one in my arms and realized that the responsibility I felt wasn't just about protection, but about creating a safe environment for love to flourish. Tears came, not of despair, but of relief. The feeling of finally being able to act with clarity gave me strength. Before, every act of manipulation and deception had left me paralyzed, but now I saw that I could respond directly and firmly without losing myself emotionally. Sam and Matthias's presence was essential, reminding me that genuine support exists and can be a source of real strength. Later, when Bruna began to dramatize something small, I felt patience grow within me. Instead of getting angry, I took a deep breath and calmly but firmly explained the boundaries we all needed to respect. Camilla looked at me with silent admiration, and this reinforced that I was on the right track. I felt a mixture of pride and relief, as if I had achieved something that had long seemed impossible, remaining calm and protecting my family at the same time. I realized that, although manipulation still existed, there was now clarity and firmness in my actions, and this gave me a sense of control I had never experienced before. Late in the afternoon, Hugo came to me, visibly more relaxed. He talked about trying to reorganize the family's life together with Rita, and I felt immense gratitude at realizing I didn't have to carry everything alone. Sam held my hand, and Matthias gave me a hug, conveying confidence. For the first time in a long time, I felt like we were building something solid, even though the conflict still lingered. The clarity that grew within me allowed me to realize that love and unity can overcome manipulation and pain, and that protecting those we love doesn't have to mean constant suffering. As night fell, I sat with Sophia on my lap and felt a quiet peace invade my body. The feeling of relief was intense, but also realistic. Challenges would still exist, but now I knew I had the strength and support to face them. For the first time, I felt that overcoming wasn't just about surviving, but about rebuilding our lives, step by step, with clear boundaries, genuine love, and the courage to face whatever was necessary. I felt hope, strength, and resilience grow within me, something I hadn't felt in a long time. The next day, I realized something inside me had shifted forever. The feeling of fear was still there, but it was no longer paralyzing. Now it was accompanied by clarity and determination. Regina continued to try to interfere. Daniela continued to spread accusations, but I knew I was ready. For the first time, I felt like my decisions truly mattered, and that protecting my family didn't have to consume me completely. Hugo looked at me with a mixture of pride and relief, and I realized our relationship had strengthened. Sam and Matthias remained by my side, steadfast, reminding me that true strength is shared. It was a moment of silent recognition. Even amidst the pain, there was room for hope, support, and rebuilding. As I cared for Sophia that day, I felt something incredible. Fear had given way to a sense of purpose. Every loving gesture, every care for the little one, represented more than protection. It was an affirmation that our family could be healthy and happy, even after so much conflict. The tears came, but they weren't of pain. They were of relief, gratitude, and strength. I realized I didn't have to carry everything alone. I could count on Hugo, Rita, Sam, Matthias, and even Camilla, who was beginning to stand up for herself more firmly. This support network gave me the courage to face Regina and Daniela when necessary, without feeling guilty or weak. For the first time, I felt like we were truly rebuilding our lives. Late that afternoon, talking to Bruna, I felt something unexpected. Even with all her drama, I managed to remain calm and firmly explain my limits. She wasn't happy, of course, but I began to realize I no longer needed to give in to all the manipulation. Camilla watched silently, and I felt proud of the three of us, even though I knew there were still challenges. This clarity about what was necessary to protect the family without losing oneself was liberating. For the first time, I felt I could act with both firmness and love. The chaos still existed, but it no longer dominated me. When night fell, I sat with Sophia on my lap, watching her. Peaceful sleep, and felt a peace I hadn't felt in years. The fear was still there, but it was no longer paralyzing. The pain was still there, but there was room for love and hope. Sam hugged me. Matthias held my hand, and Hugo smiled lightly, finally breathing lightly. I realized that overcoming grief doesn't mean forgetting the pain or conflicts, but rather finding the strength to act consciously, protect those we love, and rebuild our lives, even if slowly. For the first time, I felt we were on the right path together, strong, and prepared to face whatever came. Now, looking back, I'm proud of myself and the family we managed to protect. I know there will still be challenges, but I've discovered something important. True strength isn't surviving in silence, but facing chaos with clarity, setting boundaries, and allowing love and unity to prevail. Today, I feel hope, resilience, and courage. I feel I can protect and love without losing myself, that I can rebuild our history and create a future where true affection overcomes manipulation. That day marked my transformation, the point at which I realized that even in the midst of pain, it is possible to find strength, clarity, and hope.